Welcome back to the NASP channel. We recently had a chance to interview Leon Shearer, the president of Ideal Security Inc., to talk about their product, the Ladder-Aide Pro. This innovative tool is revolutionizing the way professionals and homeowners alike approach tasks on uneven surfaces, like stairs. Engineered for safety, versatility, and ease of use, the Ladder-Aide Pro ensures a stable and secure platform for various types of ladders. Today we'll uncover the inspiration behind its design, explore its features, and hear firsthand about the impact it's making in enhancing safety and efficiency in maintenance and construction work. Join us now as we learn more about this indispensable addition to any toolkit. What inspired the creation of the Ladder-Aide Pro, and what were the key goals you aimed to achieve during its development?
Yeah, so the Ladder-Aide, the original Ladder-Aide, was actually invented and created by my father-in-law, who was the president of the company before me. And he had seen a product, a sort of similar product at a trade show somewhere that was interesting enough to him to look at, but poorly executed. But it kind of piqued something in his mind, and he and his engineer started looking more into the space and saw lots of questions about how to use ladders safely on stairs, or not safely, how to use ladders on stairs. Saw lots of examples and ideas about how to do it. None of them struck them as safe or simple enough. And the products out there seemed overly complicated and overly engineered. And so they dug into it and designed the original Ladder-Aide back in the early 2000s. And then there's a long story about why it didn't come to market then and why it's come to market now. But the key goals, what they were really thinking about at the time, primarily, the first thing was safety as a constraint, right? There's no sense developing something to help you use ladders safely on stairs if it's not safe. And so everything was within that constraint about how do we make it, perfectly safe, completely safe. And then the second tier goals were looking at simplicity and ease of use. It was really about designing something as simple as it could be, because it's not a very complicated problem. It's relatively simple, right? Stairs are already stable and flat and relatively level. The only thing is, how do you create a level surface that a ladder can fit on a staircase? So they were looking to solve a simple problem as simply as they could. And then we've made a few iterations since that first one. We redeveloped it to be bigger, and that's where we got the Ladder-Aide Pro, but always looking to make it easier and safer.
Can you describe the specific safety features of the Ladder-Aide Pro? How do these features align with or exceed OSHA Safety Standards 1926.1053B1 and 1910.23B8, which states ladders must be used only for their designed purpose?
So the big thing in terms of compliance with that code is that the Ladder-Aide doesn't attach to or modify the ladder. It's just a thing to put a ladder on. So as opposed to some of the other solutions out there, there's nothing, you're not drilling into the ladder, you're not clamping anything onto the legs. The Ladder-Aide just provides a surface for the ladder to be used on. So there's nothing that modifies how the ladder is used. And there's nothing in OSHA that says, where specifically a ladder can or cannot be used. What they're talking about is, it's been designed to be used this way. And so we address that by providing nothing more than a surface. The safety features that we built around that were a very wide stabilizer base that goes on the bottom step to keep the unit stable and from slipping and from tipping over. There's a lip around the platform frame, which provides some bracing for ladder feet, but also, part of that, the design for that lip that comes up around the platform is to prevent ladders from being placed on it improperly. They can't be placed, you can't use a ladder with feet that are too wide for it. You can't put a ladder, if you don't get enough distance from the wall, you can't put the ladder just sticking out off the platform because there's a lip there that's going to block the feet. There's rubber on the bottom of the platform to prevent it from slipping. And then, in terms of engineering, it's virtually impossible to assemble it wrong. Pieces can't be put in backwards. They can't be put in upside down. Dex, our engineer, really focused on how do we make it impossible to put this together any way other than the way it's supposed to be used.
How does the Ladder-Aide Pro address common workplace hazards associated with ladder use? And is it compliant with OSHA standards 1926.1053A6 and 1910.23C4 regarding the requirements for ladders to be used on stable and level surfaces?
So that's literally all it is, right? Is a stable and level surface. And that's really what we focus on. And as we look at ways to improve it, as we looked at the first design, is all the Ladder-Aide is a stable and level surface to put a ladder on top of. It was purposely designed that way, and that's how we ensure that we're compliant with OSHA and that hopefully users are compliant as well. The other thing that I'll say there in terms of addressing kind of common workplace hazards is the platform is designed to get full surface contact with the stairs. So you've got this platform that sits on the top step and the stabilizer that sits on the bottom step, and it's providing much more surface contact than even just a ladder used on the ground has. A ladder on the ground has the 2 feet, and here you're getting a lot more surface contact. So it's added stability, and well, I guess just that added stability there that we like to focus on.
What innovative design elements have been incorporated into the Ladder-Aide Pro to enhance safety and usability?
I think that the most innovative thing about the Ladder-Aide is actually its simplicity. It doesn't have a lot of innovative design elements, except that we took out a lot of the complexity around solving this problem, made it easier to use and safer that way. That's part of the beauty of the product, is its simplicity. Where what that simplicity looks like, or that innovative simplicity looks like, one is so it's height adjustable, which is super important if you're going to be safe and provide a level surface. And other products, or we've seen things with like leveling screws that have to be turned and turned and turned to come up to level, which is slow and cumbersome. Or products that use cotter pins, which have these cotter keys that go in on the other side. So we use these drop nose pins. It's not a fancy innovation. They're out there, but it's just a little pin that goes through the hole once you've got it level, these leveling holes. And there's a little piece at the end of the pin that just drops down and locks into place. So you've reduced some pieces there, and it made it, again, harder to use this without locking the pin in place, because it locks itself in place. So that's one. I talked about the full surface contact with the stairs. Some of the products out there use these peg legs, which are very narrow, or just sit kind of hugging the edge of the step. The Ladder-Aide is designed to get anywhere between 50 and 100 square inches of surface contact with the steps. So there's no risk of slipping or falling off the steps. That wide stabilizer base does the same. We have rubber on the base to keep it from slipping, but we built it out of steel to be strong. We recently added, little things again, but we recently added traction tape to the platform, the surface of the platform itself, to provide a little extra grip for the ladder feet. And one thing that we actually had a lot of internal discussions about as we tested them out and continue to test them, but super tight tolerances. It actually is a little difficult to assemble the first or second time, because we've designed the tolerances between the pieces that slide and attach together to be so tight that there's no wiggle on it. There's no waggle. There's no, like shifting. And to do that, you have to make everything fit together really, really tight. And so, one of the pieces of guidance that we've had to address is like, if you're having a little trouble assembling it the first time, that's a good thing. That's by design. So rather than get lazy or make it easier to assemble, but you'll see some of the other products out there where there's a lot of shifting when it's assembled, we really keep everything tight.
How has compliance with OSHA regulations influenced the design and manufacturing of the Ladder-Aide Pro?
What's interesting is the short answer is no, but there was a lot of alignment between the original design criteria, as I talked about at the beginning, about making it simple and making it simple and safe, and what OSHA requires, and where there's a lot of overlap and alignment with where the original design ended up, which was, don't modify the ladder, don't attach anything to a ladder, just provide a stable and level surface for that ladder to sit on stairs. And that's what OSHA requires, and that's what we designed.
Can you share any data or testimonials that demonstrate the impact of the Ladder-Aide Pro on improving workplace safety?
some of the kind of comments that we see and that we get are, it was, the space was too tall for a little giant ladder, and the railing of the stairs blocked an extension ladder from working until I found this and could put it in place. We hear a lot, like we had a burnt out light in the staircase of a commercial building. That's a big thing, is like these problems that are $5 or $10 problems, or in our case, we have a $150 solution to a problem. It's a burnt out light bulb, right? You're going to bring in a man lift or set up scaffolding, which is what they have to do now. That's I think what we hear the most, or what we like to hear the most, is we had a small problem and this was a simple fix for it.
Are there any plans for future enhancements or new features for the Ladder-Aide Pro to further improve safety in line with evolving OSHA standards?
As I mentioned, so we just added, traction tape to improve safety and things like that. So little things always. One thing that we're very aware of and looking at is less impactful in the United States immediately, or North America immediately, but there have been changes to ladder regulations in the UK, where all ladders now going forward are going to have these stabilizer bars along the bottom, which are going to be much wider than the Ladder-Aide in a staircase. So there's always developments in the space that we have to be aware of and that we monitor, and we look at how to stay compliant, or what adjustments we need to make to remain relevant. The big one that I talk about in terms of future developments is we have been working on an adapter that would let the Ladder-Aide be used on sloped ground outdoors. Again, we looked at it a lot, and it's another simple problem that merits a simple solution, but often simple solutions are kind of the most complicated to come up with. So we spent a couple of years working on this. We've gone through a few prototypes. We have, I think, a working concept now. As to when we'll be able to bring that to market, I can't speak, but it's something that we're excited to keep working on.
What kind of training or educational resources do you provide to ensure users understand how to use the Ladder-Aide Pro safely and effectively?
We have plenty of videos and walkthroughs and FAQs and documentation. We include, visual instructions in the box. As you said, it's a pretty straightforward thing to use, but when it comes to safety, training is so important, and user awareness is so much more important than the equipment, because no matter what you do with the equipment, no matter how safe you try to make it, if people don't know how to use it properly, it's not going to be used safely. So we're aware of that. We're happy to provide, training by video or communications as necessary. We're happy to engage with our customers always, especially since it is relatively simple and it's not a big ask for us to call in or talk to people and say, like, here's how you're going to use it safely, address questions about, questions and concerns. But at our website and on YouTube, there's lots of guides about how to use it properly.
How has the industry responded to the Ladder-Aide Pro, and what feedback have you received from safety professionals?
So at the trade shows we go to, and when we speak to people, professionals have responded. Response has been really positive. We have a lot of interesting conversations with inspectors and consultants who, in particular, talk about needing to provide viable alternatives when telling people that they can't do what they're currently doing. So one of the comments we get from inspectors who take our materials that, like, they're not going to buy it and they can't push it and they can't deploy it, but they want to be able to go on site and tell somebody, what you're doing is unsafe, or you're not allowed to do that. That's a really easy thing to say, but they don't want to have to then say, you've got to set up a scaffold for that, or you got to bring in a lift in for that. And so now they like having options that are quick and easy. And, when the guys say, well, what do you want me to do? They can hand this over and say, well, this would be one option, is what I'd like you to do. And it's safe and it's cheap and it's really realistic. The other story, at the last trade show we were at, I love this experience where an in-house, safety manager came by and looked at it and said, "Oh, that's pretty clever," and kind of chuckled and said, "I'd never let my people use it. It's clever, it's great for a home, but that's not going to be safe enough for commercial use." And then he walked away. And then he came back. And he was kind of like something was bothering him, and he looked and he said, "I don't know. I mean, it looks safe, but it just doesn't feel right." And we talked some more, and then he left. And then he came back again with some colleagues, and he actually he came back with the president of the NASP, and he pointed to the Ladder-Aide Pro and said, I love the idea. There's no way it's safe, but I can't figure out why. Like, what am I missing here? And there was this whole discussion around whether the Ladder-Aide Pro does what it says and is safe enough to deploy commercially and institutionally. And at the end of this discussion, everybody, there was kind of consensus that it's safe. We've designed it right. It works. There's no problem with it, but it's so simple. These are people who are used to seeing man lifts and scaffolding set up to change light bulbs, and to look at this and say like, well, here's a $150 little 2-foot thing that's going to get the job done. There is talk about training. There's some retraining to be done in how people think about it and how people view it. So that's a lot of the response that we get. The other thing that I want to say, and this ties into training, and I think it's worth saying again, I don't know if you're going to use this, but training is so important. And that conversation really led into a discussion about training people to use it properly. There is a lot of risk when you're working on ladders, on stairs or off stairs. It doesn't matter where you're using it. Ladders are inherently risky, and there's a lot of injury and a lot of, unfortunately, serious injury coming from ladder use. And so particularly around using the Ladder-Aide on stairs, there's user training that has to be done there about how to step on safely, how to step off safely, how to use it properly. But within the constraints of it being used properly and ladders being used for their designed purposes, the Ladder-Aide Pro is a safe way to do it.
How does the Ladder-Aide Pro compare to other ladder leveling solutions in terms of safety and compliance with OSHA regulations?
So the other approaches, there are two big other approaches. One, things that attach onto one or two legs of the ladder, and then that thing can be leveled so that your whole ladder can be leveled. Or other devices that sit on the stairs and that the ladder can go on top of. So more similar to ours. But what neither of those, where the Ladder-Aide sits is in the overlap between the two. It is height adjustable, like leg extenders, but it doesn't attach to the ladder. So it doesn't modify the use of the ladder. And that's really the big thing, is being able to, and then what we've taken as a different approach, or compared to the other units that kind of sit on stairs, is that full surface contact that I talked about. It's not hugging the edge or the lip of a step. It's really sitting on the full step. So we provided something that is both height adjustable and stable and level and doesn't attach to the ladder. And I think that that's what differentiates the Ladder-Aide in terms of OSHA compliance specifically, not to mention just safety in general and ease of use and benefits all around. It is, however, and I think, again, it's important to point out that this is a purpose-designed product. The other ones that I talked about, they'll work on sloped ground. They'll work outdoors. They'll work on a roof. And that's great. But, to my mind, when we're talking about OSHA compliance, when we're talking about safety, we've been able to provide this, what I think is the safest way to do this, by making it purpose-designed, by making it single use, by saying we're not going to try to touch roofing or grassy slopes. We're just going to make it quick and easy and safe to put your ladder on these stairs.
Any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I will say, again, I alluded to the price point. It's worth mentioning again, because it's not going to solve every problem out there, and it's not going to replace scaffolding. It's not going to replace lifts, but at the price point of $150, and paired with one of the features that isn't a safety feature, so we didn't talk about it, but it's how compact it is. It collapses easily. It assembles in, a couple minutes, and it collapses down to 2 feet by 10 inches. So you can have it always available. It's always at hand. And so when you run into a small problem, like changing a light bulb or cleaning the filters on an HVAC unit, you have this available. And that's where, again, talking about purpose built, it's purpose designed to solve those small problems where you don't want to spend hours or even days setting up a solution just to do a 5-minute fix.
Thank you for joining us in this enlightening conversation with Leon Shearer, president of Ideal Security Inc., about the Ladder-Aide Pro. We've explored the innovation, safety, and practicality that this tool brings to working on stairs, making tasks safer and more efficient. It's clear that the Ladder-Aide Pro is an essential tool for professionals and homeowners alike, ensuring that working at heights is accessible and secure. For further details or to add this innovative solution to your toolkit, visit the Ideal Security website. We'll put a link in the description below. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps us out and makes sure we can keep bringing you the best in workplace safety-related content. Stay tuned for more insights and interviews on cutting-edge tools and technologies, and we'll see you in the next video.